October 8, 2013. Guys, we're looking at this debt ceiling coming up on the 17th. The country right now is been broke for years. We know that. But they've been borrowing money from China for years. Started really heavy back in 2011 again. But here this is April 17th this year, China sent their new ambassador to the White House. He gave his letter of credence to President Obama. Notice that grin. Now, what basically happened at this point was President Obama was giving a letter of notice of, we're going to have to step in and take this mess over. Guys, and they fought to keep us from knowing this information, but this is what happened. Now let's go up to just a few weeks ago, September 21st. Hagel and the new Chinese foreign minister applaud steady improvement of China-U.S. military ties. Guys, they're not worried about the rest of the world. They're worried about the United States citizens. It says visiting Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi and Chuck Hagel hailed the recent progress, vying to promote mutual military exchanges and strategic trust. It says they were at the Pentagon, noting military relationship is an important part of the overall China-U.S. relationship. Says he called for concrete actions by both countries to build a new type of military-to-military relationship that is compatible with the new model of major country relations, as agreed by Chinese President Xi Jinping and his U.S. counterpart, Barack Obama. Let's just go back a couple months before that June summit at Annenberg Estate in California. You don't hear it on the news, do you? The takeover started. Did you know that in China they call our president their puppet? He says that this is the first year that the Chinese Navy is going to join us in that Pacific Rim naval exercise. They stepped in and said, we're going to run it. Now here is the new foreign minister with Joe Biden laying the law down to him. This was September 20th this year. Says you can read this. If I go too fast, just pause it and read it. This was at the White House. This is who we're talking about. This is the new leader of the United States. He has a boss in China, but he's running the show here now. He said he's a call for sustained political resolve, persistent commitment, and tireless efforts. Sounds like Merkel taking over Europe. Says they're going to be a new model of major country relations into reality. So this new model they're talking about. Goes on to talk about that meeting. But says Wang added that China is willing to work with the United States to ensure cyber security. They're going to run an NSA too, I guess. Says he suggested China and the United States turn the Asia Pacific into a testing ground for building the new model of relations, as they have more converging interests and frequent interactions in the region than anywhere else. Guys, that's because they own us. Look at this. This goes back from 1945 up until now. Foreign ownership of U.S. treasuries and agencies. Look at that. Over 60% foreign-owned China. Most of that's China. Foreign ownership of U.S. corporate bonds and equities. Here, trace the money if you want to find the problem. Now, it says because of low savings rate, that means there's people in the United States are so broke we're not saving a lot of money. The United States borrows to finance the federal budget deficit and its private capital needs. It therefore depends on countries with high savings rates such as China to invest some of their money into the United States. Such investments help to keep the U.S. interest rates relatively low and enable the U.S. to consume more than it produces. Man, it doesn't get any better. According to the IMF, in 2012, the United States was the world's largest importer of foreign capital at 37.4% is how much we had to borrow, while China was the largest exporter of capital at 13.3%. Now, it's saying that China has amassed a huge level of foreign exchange reserves, $3.5 trillion by the end of just this June. Rather than hold the dollars, which earn no interest, the Chinese central government has converted some level of its foreign exchange reserve holdings into U.S. financial securities. They're buying the U.S. It says Chinese companies are plowing money into U.S. assets at a record pace, making huge bids for American assets. And just again, you can pause this, but China agrees to continue investing in U.S. Treasury bills only after securing the right of eminent domain to physically repossess foreclosed American private property. They're buying it up all over the nation, guys. The move is the equivalent of an unconditional surrender. Also gives the Chinese military the legal right to use biological weaponry to clean up America all at once. It gives them the legal right to use deadly force in removing trespassing Americans from occupying Chinese real estate. Barack Obama, changes you can believe in is what they're talking about here. It says overall the U.S. has run a trade deficit with China over the past decade that comes to more than $2.3 trillion. That $2.3 trillion could have gone to U.S. businesses, workers, and return taxes would have been paid back out of all that, but it all went to China. It says rather than setting on the money, again, they're investing it here. It says today the U.S. government pays China $1 million a day in interest on the debt. So it says thanks to our massive trade deficit and our exploding national debt, China is systematically getting wealthier and the United States is getting poor. Now, to control a country, you've got to control one of the main things is energy. Plus, it's being exported out. And that Mexican highway and these pipelines, guys, it's all been designed for this, and that's where the money's going now. But it says Colorado, Louisiana. You can just go through 800,000 acres, 265,000, 350,000 acres. Ohio, Oklahoma, Texas, Wyoming, Gulf of Mexico. Just pause that and read it. It's oil. This is an oil company. They're not privately owned. Some state, all of that over there is owned by the Chinese government. Now, it says that the U.S. government has already set up 257 foreign trade zones all over America. It says they tend to be located near airports with easy access into the continental NAFTA and WTO multi-modal transportation systems being created. It says there's nothing in the U.S. government's description of the FTZs that could prevent a foreign government like China from operating at will. Says they've already owned Long Beach Harbor there, guys, and in Boston, Massachusetts, are owned by China Ocean Shipping Company. It's eyeing major ports on the East Coast and in the Gulf. They're buying up luxury apartments, planning to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on commercial and residential projects like the Atlantic Yards in Brooklyn. And what, guys, if on the 17th, if they don't do something about the deficit, which really there's nothing they can do but extend it and keep borrowing money. But that's not the answer. They're spending too much. It says the Bank of China has sent a team to the U.S. to do land analysis. Now, this started 2 years ago based on resources that have been identified on federally held lands. You know, that's our parks. Ben Bernanke urged U.S. lawmakers to lift the country's borrowing limit, citing scant weeks until a potentially dangerous situation. That started back January of this year. Now, it says the Chinese are pushing for the disarming of the American populace. They do not want to bear the brunt of the backlash from the American public when their work and aspirations are exposed. Also, guys, if you've been keeping up with it, Germany has taken over the One World Bank pretty much. They're running the show just like they plan to do. And what's bad about that is it says that they are going to ask the United Nations to pull in a brokerage deal and to appear to save the United States in a bailout and to step in and take over. Says China is the biggest foreign creditor to the United States. It has waded into the American budget crisis, warning Congress that it must resolve the political impasse. Now, I want you to take the time and read through this information. It says, since the global financial crisis, which led to a sharp depreciation in the value of the dollar, says the authorities in Beijing have been concerned about the fact that so much of their national reserves are held in the form of American currency. Says they're stressed that it's vital not only for China but the wider global economy for America to resolve its budget impasse. Safeguarding the debt is of vital importance to the economy of the U.S. and the world, referring to a similar deadlock in 2011, saying they hope we've learned our lesson. So that's what's going on in Washington. That's what all of this is about. It may have to do with the FEMA 3 region. There's a lot of distractions, and the world knows something's about to happen. Heads up.